How many points you getting?
Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Alison McConnell and Tam McManus here with us to look back over the weekend's Scottish Premiership fixtures and the lower leagues, and of course we'll cast our eye over England as well. So much to talk about, and thank you very much to each and every one of you for hitting the subscribe button. If you haven't already, we would be delighted if you could do so. Hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel for uncensored football views, and of course a wee bit of banter thrown in depending on how Ruffy feels from time to time. So
in good spirits today.
He is in good spirits, and I'll tell you why shortly. But what we're going to be talking about, well, Giovanni van Bronckhorst on the brink at the moment. A lot of speculation that he could be gone as Rangers manager. If that develops, we will keep you right up to date with it. Lee Johnson's also feeling the heat at Easter Road. Celtic, well, they head to Australia today, 9 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Elsewhere, Jim McInally has stepped down as Peterhead manager, and Ronaldo has let rip at his club Manchester United. We'll be hearing from Ronaldo on this show as well. So just a few of the things that we'll be talking about, including of course getting everyone's thoughts on the Premiership shutting down for the next 4 to 5 weeks. I wonder if it's necessary. Only 13 players going to Qatar from the SPFL. Does that facilitate shutting down the whole of Scottish football, Ruffy?
I think you just have to come under the umbrella of everybody, every country, you know, and you can't be seen to be isolated, you know, or making up your own rules. So I think we just have to toe the line and go with everybody else.
Yeah, okay. Ali?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, because if you know the figures in advance, you could maybe work a way around it. I think Celtic might have thought they would have had a few more guys called up if the likes of Kyogo and Hatate had been in that squad. I think it's very difficult to make the call just before final squads are all announced. So yeah, I can appreciate the reasons why you would go for a shutdown. Yeah,
you in for it, Tam?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it gives everyone a wee break, and you get to watch the World Cup as well. Obviously, Ali, freelance, you want to be staying and doing the games, but I think you're still doing the World Cup games. But no, I think if you're within the industry, then you want a break.
Yeah,
amazed at the amount of money the clubs get for the players that are taking part. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, some amount of money to be handed out. Yeah, absolutely. Fair play to them for it. Don't worry, just in case you're thinking of sending any kind of money to Ali, she's fine for the entire month. Don't believe me. There won't be any destitute McConnell, I can tell you.
So it depends how that predictor goes.
Yeah. We'll talk about the predictor as well. Somebody had a really good weekend. I think it's getting tight at the top, Ruffy. That's all I'm saying to you. Thanks to so many of you: Matt, Paul Baird, Errol Campbell, Lee Shanley, Gary Connor is from Portland, Maine. I've been there on my holidays in the summer. Hi to Gary, Emo, as well as Stephen McDonald, Derek Smith, also Alan Woods, Catherine Kelly, who's in sunny Spain. There's so many people actually have joined us from near and far, and they're hitting the subscribe button as well. So thank you to so many of you for doing that and downloading the app as well, where a lot of people are watching the programme. Although the main crux is now basically, Ruffy, people getting used to us on their YouTube, on their smart television, usually in their man or woman caves. You see how politically correct I am, Ruffy?
Yes, smart caves are going out the window. I think it's Black Friday this Friday, isn't it? A couple of guys were saying they were going to go out and get the smart telly just to watch us.
Yeah,
no other reason.
Well, that's fantastic. There you are. That's what happens when you get out of prison. You just automatically want to watch us. Anyway, thank you very much to so many of you for your support. We really do appreciate it. So let's get to the meat and bones of all this. I was at St Mirren on Saturday, and I have to say, Rangers were woeful. It's the only way I can describe it. No real direction, predictable down the left-hand side. And I watched a Rangers report that wasn't angry. There was just a sense of apathy, I thought, at the end of the game, Ruffy. And there wasn't a great amount of people waiting to give the manager and the players pelters going on to the bus afterwards either.
No, I think they're really, really confused with everything that's going on. I think they're as confused as everybody else. They don't know what's happening. Nobody's come out and gave you a definitive of, there's going to be meetings, or there's going to be this, there's going to be talks. So I think they went away for the game not knowing what's going to happen to their manager, and I think we won't know either. I would like to think there'll be discussions in the month we're now into the World Cup. There'll be things happening between that, but. You're right, I would only get past Matsley Tavernier. I thought Tavernier was his usual, good self getting forward. I liked the boy Wright. I thought he did okay but apart from that, for me, as soon as they lose a goal, it's chips down. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know, in the olden days with Rangers and Celtic, if that happened at Love Street, they would turn it a win, and these set of players don't have it in them.
Yeah, I don't think at this moment that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has the support of the majority of Rangers fans. I think they've lost faith in him. I certainly don't see any great direction. People can talk about some players that are out, but I don't think that's a legitimate excuse, because I don't think it changes that side other than in the back line, where I think Golson has been a big loss to them. You can't say Helander, because he just hasn't been available for a long period anyway, and the recruitment, I think, has let the manager down badly. I think if the big question here is, as everybody starts to speculate, and obviously, at times we can in football hover around a manager like a vulture waiting for the axe to fall. And this is what Giovanni Van Bronckhorst had to say regarding his future, because he's 9 points behind Celtic now. They're not going to win the league. And he said, if you have a run like this, a lot of things can happen, but I have the backing of the board. They gave me confidence, but in football, you never know. If you lose points at home against Livingston and away against St Johnstone and St Mirren, it's not good enough. We need to continue with this squad after the break. This is a squad we work on, and every window you see if you can make changes in the squad to become stronger. Well, if they sack him, then there's a bit of money to pay out for him and his backroom staff. Then they've got to go and recruit somebody else, and then they've got to try and get money for players. And let's not forget, despite everything that's said, there was a loss on the financial figures, because no matter, there's a wee bit of spin here and there, but there was a loss. And now you're wondering how much money is in the kitty for the board to actually change. And
it's a substantial amount of money that's been quoted that it would cost Rangers to make a managerial change, to sever the contract of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst and the backroom staff too. And as you say, any manager who's going to take the job, the first question you're going to ask is, what's the budget that you have to go in and start rebuilding? I think the point you made is absolutely correct, that recruitment has let them down. I think Rangers stagnated over the summer. When you look at the quality that came in, I don't think they enhanced the squad at all. When you look at the levels that were there, this is a team that got to the final of the Europa League last season. They should be kicking on. They should have been looking to bring in even just one or two quality additions that would have strengthened the hand. I think the failure to do so has been hugely costly. I think when you get to this point in the season, there's a 9-point gap. It becomes very difficult to go on. It's a very difficult and laboured process if you don't make the change now.
The way I'm looking at it, and we've had many discussions where we think, is the manager going to go or not? The big dilemma for the board, as well as financial, and I think that's the main stumbling block at the moment, Tam, is if you're going to back this manager, then you're going to back him to take this team to the end of the season. Are you going to give him the funds to bring in players, and who's bringing in the players in the first place anyway for the manager to coach them, and do you have confidence that he can do it? My answer to all of that is no, we don't. So why persevere with him? I think his time is up, but there are other contributing factors that might save his neck.
Yeah, I think the main contributing factor would be the payoff. I think it's in the media today, in the newspapers today, that somewhere around £4 million, to pay off Gio and his staff. I think that's a lot of money. And then if you go and have to get another manager, people are talking about Sean Dyche. I don't think there's any chance of him coming to Rangers, maybe at the end of the season. But I think he'll wait until maybe Nottingham Forest lose a manager, or somebody at the bottom of the table in the Premier League maybe is looking for a manager. But even if he came to Rangers, he'd be wanting 40-50 grand a week. That's what he was on at Burnley. So I don't think Rangers can afford to sack him. But then you're getting to a situation where can you not afford to sack him, because of money. But I think they're miles off of Celtic. I think the league's done. I think Celtic are heavy favourites to win the treble now, and do they let the manager limp it to the end of the season? I don't think the supporters are going to accept that. I think if it goes 12, 15 points, and Celtic beat them in the New Year's game, then I think there'll be protests outside the door, to try to get them out. So I'm not so sure they've got the money to bag them now. I think they'll limp it to the end of the season. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it is a business after all, Ruffy. They've got to think about fans coming to the stadium.
Yeah, we've saw on numerous occasions the Old Firm fans, if they're out of everything, they just disappear. And that's both clubs I'm talking about, not just the one. And both of them have been there. They want that to happen. They'll have to keep the fans on board. They're the ones that are spending the money in the stadium when the games are on. So they'll have to come up with something. And the only thing I can see them coming up with is we'll beat Celtic at Ibrox in the New Year's game. That's something that they would hang on to. If he was to win that game, I don't know what's going to happen in between times, but if he was to win that game, supporters being supporters will buy into whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that would be on the basis, Ruffy, that you would see signs of something in the way they play, Alison, and on the evidence of watching them at the weekend as well. Obviously, you see them regularly in the other matches, but this is against a St Mirren, against a St Johnstone, against a Livingston, where there's nothing. I mean, Morelos, for me, the amount of Rangers fans who were absolutely raging with him for his contribution, he looked totally disinterested. He offered nothing in any of the channels whatsoever. I looked at him and I thought, you're not a threat in any capacity to St Mirren's back line.
He's shameful. I actually think for an athlete, for a professional footballer, his lack of conditioning, I think it's disgusting. I think this is a guy that had ambitions to go and play at higher level, to go elsewhere. I think at one point, there were substantial figures being quoted for his services if anyone was coming in for him. Who would buy him now? Where can you go now after this? I think you could make parallels with him and Lee Griffiths in the way that their careers have panned out, but there's at least a decade between the two of them. He's still a relatively young player. This should have been the season with another striker coming in and a bit of competition for the jersey. He should have been sharpening his teeth and going out and saying, I'm ready to go and show what I've got, what I have to offer this team, that I'm the number one striker here, and making a fairly substantial contribution. He's dropped off entirely. He's unreliable. You couldn't put him in. You couldn't count him for goals. And I think it's a very poor reflection on choices all through the club. One, for keeping him there and letting him get into the state he's in, and two, for him on a personal level to allow his own career to slide the way it has.
It looks as if he's lost his hunger, and I'm talking about on the pitch, clearly not off the pitch, but on the pitch he's not got that edge about him. Yep. He was at his best when he was in and he was getting involved and getting bookings and roughing up centre halves, and that seems to have disappeared. He's not getting involved. There was a ball about 10 minutes towards the end of the game, get played into the channel, and he was 70-30 favourite to get it, and the St Mirren player just zoomed by him. He had about 3 yards on him, and this big centre back for St Mirren ran by him. He was so slow getting on it. His fitness is shocking. I totally agree with Ali about his conditioning, but how is he allowed to do that at Rangers? Surely there's somebody in there going, listen, you're not going to play until you get yourself into shape.
Yeah,
I know they've done that. Gio did say that, at the start of the season, but
at the start of the season, he said, I can't pick him just now because he's not fit enough. And as a professional football player, your own pride.
Yeah, but you only have to go back 4 or 5 weeks ago where you're witnessing him in doing individual training on his own to try and get fit for some of the European games. I mean, we did see that.
But you don't need the Instagram pictures of I am in the gym. What you want to see is, here I am on the pitch, there's something about me and I'm here to contribute. This is what I've got, I'm here to help the team. This is when you need your players to turn up. This is when you need your leaders on the pitch to come in and say, we've got to arrest this run of form, you've got to grind out a win, you've got to find a goal from somewhere, whether it be that St Johnstone game, the St Mirren game, the Livingston game. There has to be an appetite to go and eke it out by any means necessary, and I think he's indicative of the problems that are there throughout Rangers just now.
Yeah, listen, let's take nothing away from St Mirren. They coped well with everything that Rangers had to throw at them into the box. It became predictable. It was out to the left, it was Kent, it was then Barisic throwing them in there, and nobody really on the end of anything. And I think St Mirren were happy that was going that way. And when St Mirren got their goal, you got that feeling that maybe if in a second Rangers would just be dead in the water, but somehow they got back into it, although Stephen Robinson, the Saints boss, was wondering how they were going to get back into it because he thought St Mirren had coped with everything that they'd thrown at them.
I think it shows how far we've come that we're disappointed not to get all 3 points. I thought we were excellent first half, discipline, organisation, and a lot of quality in our build-up play and counter-attacking. I think we set back after we scored a little bit, but our defensive shape was excellent. I couldn't see Rangers scoring, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, Jonah Ayuna, I just thought he ragdolled their back line at times. He was just magnificent, Ruffy.
Yeah, he's been like that since he's come into the team, and he's scoring goals, which obviously gives him a bit of confidence. Took his goal well, he was in the right place at the right time. But I think he's right, I don't think if Rangers hadn't got the penalty, I don't think they would have scored. And that's just the way things are going just now. Yeah, they had a few shots at goal, the goalkeeper had 2 or 3 good saves, but you got to expect that when you play against Rangers. You're going to create chances, but they just look a lot of the players just look disillusioned.
Yeah, okay, fair play to St Mirren, they got the point. And now big questions. I think there's a sense that everybody's keeping their eye on what's happening around Ibrox and whether the board will be making any announcement today. I don't envisage something happening before we get to 5 o'clock, but if it does happen, then keep on our social media across our website and our app, and we'll keep you right up to date with any breaking stories. If it does in the middle of this programme, we'll relay that to you as well. As far as the odds on a new manager, it's always worrying, but the bookies put them out there. Here's exactly what they make of potential replacements if indeed Gio is replaced. Steven Gerrard 2-1. Could he come back? Michael Beale at 4-1. Sean Dyche at 8-1. Gary McAllister 10-1, and Kiel Kuntsen he's 12-1, and Michael O'Neill 14-1. I wonder about some of the names, and they always think some of the bookies just throw things in there and see if somebody's going to waste a tenner.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see any of them, to be honest. Michael Beale possibly at the end of the season, but Michael Beale, they've fell off a cliff since they knocked back the Wolves job. I don't think they've won a game. So Steven Gerrard, I don't think he would go back. I don't think he would go back. I think he'll have a wee break and try and get back in somewhere in England. McAllister now.
Bodo Glimt manager.
I think that's just an outside name that someone stuck 20 quid on. And
You used to call him Stuart Baxter, remember?
Yeah.
He was linked with every job that was going.
I think, I'm not sure that there's an obvious candidate to come in and replace Gio van Bronckhorst when you look there. Sean Dyche would be the favourite in terms of popularity. If you ask the Rangers fans, do you want him to win? I think he would be the one that people would bite your hand off. But I'm with Tam. I think finances around that deal make it utterly prohibitive.
And of course, this is, obviously it's a strange situation that his name has even surfaced on the basis that he really wants to be in the Premier League. I mean, I don't know how many times he has to say it for people to actually let the penny drop, but listen, stranger things have happened, but we wait because Giovanni van Bronckhorst is still in a job. If you're a Rangers fan out there, who would you like to see replace Gio if indeed he is going to be sacked by the club? But he's still there at the moment, but as he mentioned at the weekend, you just never know in football. And when you drop points, the worst thing that can happen is you watch your nearest rivals win a game. And win a game with, again, something that happened in the St Mirren game. I mean, I thought Kevin Clancy made some strange decisions. I thought he was off it. I thought he was poor as a referee. Some of his decisions were, just crazy. I must admit, thankfully, it went to VAR and Ryan Kent was touched enough to give it a penalty. So that was good. That's when VAR's used in a positive sense. But Celtic's penalty against them, Ruffy, a lot of people are bemused. I'm going to first of all, because this handball is killing the game.
Yeah, I've said it right for the start. There's no rhyme or reason, when the referee is going to give the penalty or have a look at the penalty. It's conjecture of how they all see it differently. That one in particular at Celtic was an absolute joke. I don't know what you can do to get your hand out the road, a ball just bouncing up, And there was lots of ones. Thankfully, I think VAR's getting the offsides right. I think that's one of the reasons we brought it in. But the handball thing needs to seriously have a look at, and they need to come up with something, because it's getting farcical more than anything else.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought it was just outrageous that he gave a penalty for that.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a penalty, and I didn't think the one a couple of weeks back either, the Bernabei one, you know, when he jumps and heads it and the ball goes behind him and hits it. I didn't think that was either. I think, as a rule of thumb, there was an easy kind of way of establishing it. Was it hand to ball or was it ball to hand? I always thought that was a fairly robust measurement of whether or not you think there's been a deliberate.
Is there a suggestion you feel then that it's, you know, in trying to make everything better, we've actually created a storm in something that didn't need fixed?
Yeah, I think so, and I think what you have created are so many grey areas around it, and you see that now, not just in Scotland but across all the leagues when VAR is introduced. I think some of the handball calls are baffling. Yeah,
I mean, I read Stephen McGowan in the Daily Mail saying, you know, conspiracy theories abound because quite a lot of Celtic fans love a conspiracy theory, and may I say, when you look back at one of the former Jim Farry, you know, in the George Cadet affair, a lot of people at that period of time felt vindicated with their suspicions of certain things that had gone on at the SFA. But as we hit the 21st century, I don't think it's conspiracies. I think the referees are just woeful.
I think we've spoken about this before. I think the biggest benefit that Scottish football could have is to go with full-time officials. I think it would raise the standard, it would raise the fitness. I think you can concentrate on one thing.
Would it raise the standard of the current crop?
I think probably it would. I think if you're spending more time on it, you're spending more time watching other videos, you're discussing things among peers, amongst other referees, you've maybe got an opportunity to go and look at other games elsewhere in different leagues. I think definitely the standard is poor. I think it's reflected in the fact that I can't remember the last time Scotland had officials called up for major tournaments like the World Cup. I think there's been a real drop-off in standard. I think that's reflected in just where referees are, and I think the way to address it is by bringing in full-time professional referees.
Yeah, you buying into that, Sam?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think that it's really shown up how bad the officials are. VAR, you know, VAR was brought in to give them a hand, but it's actually shown them up to be pretty incompetent. You know, in terms of the rules and in terms of some of the decisions, you know, are unbelievable. You know, I think the biggest one was the penalty kick up at Aberdeen against Hibs. You know, how can the official look at that and a computer screen and say it was a penalty? It's totally incompetent. So I think that we've got to do something. They've got a little period of time, a little bit of breathing space, maybe to iron out a few issues that they've had, but it's got to improve, because, you know, I put out on social media the other night, has it been a good thing, VAR? And I get hundreds of replies, and most of them were, get VAR out of Scottish football, we don't want it now. So from shouting for it and screaming for it, you know, we've now got it, and if the people are going, I think we want to go back to not having VAR again. So they've got to sort it out at the SFA.
Yeah, Ruffy and I sent tweets just to tell you to just take a run into yourself, just to kind of get you in, you know, the mode that you're normally in with people who are abusive towards you, didn't we, Ruffy? Didn't care about his
point. There was no grenade thrown out, no.
He doesn't read them afterwards, because once it starts to get really hurtful, he just
turn off my replies like some cowards.
Anyway, it's been a while since I've actually get engaged with it, but no, you're right, Tam. I mean, it's now a situation where I think they've got that period of time to try and tweak it and look at the mistakes that they're making, readdress it, and then hopefully get better once we come back after the World Cup, and maybe learn a few lessons, hopefully, from some good refereeing at the major tournament in Qatar as well. Although Celtic going a goal behind doesn't seem to worry Ange Postecoglou's side, and the manager himself suggested after the game with a 2-1 win that teams know that Celtic are going to come back at them.
Yeah, you can sense it even with our supporters now, that no one panics, players know what they need to do, and they really believe in themselves. I think the opposition sense it as well, that we're going to come, and you know, we're not going to be, we're not going to yield at any point. As I said, I'm pretty fortunate. I've got a fantastic group of players, real quality, but in terms of character.
Yeah, so I think there is a general feeling, Alison, that Celtic have got enough in the tank to come back if it's not going according to plan. David Turnbull proved it there, and then up stepped Haksabanovic with a peach of a goal.
I think there's a culture around the club just now. There's a mentality within that team. You saw it, it was quite hackneyed, but you heard it the minute he came in that first training session. You never stop. We keep going until the final whistle. I think that's been proven in the way that they play, but also I think the psychology around the games is so different when you have a cushion. I think if you're a couple of points behind or you're neck and neck, there's a different kind of tension within the stadium and around the team if you go a goal behind. When you go behind and you know you've not got the breath of someone on your neck, it's different. You're more relaxed, you're less likely to be harried. I think you saw it in Paisley. I think it was all very rushed from Rangers in the closing stages. There was a real lack of composure as you go and chase that goal, and some of that I think you can attribute to pressure of knowing just how much adrift you're going to be if you don't get back into it. Whereas the converse is true. I think when you can afford to drop points, there's a different psychology around the games. But certainly I think the culture at Celtic just now is they'll keep going, even if they're 2 or 3-0 up in a game. You know they'll keep going, looking for other goals. If they're behind, I think you'd never be able to relax because you know they're going to play to the 95th, 96th minute. Yeah,
the penalty seemed to cause the most consternation. Even Malky Mackay didn't think they were going to be awarded a penalty.
You know, Ange was and were remonstrating and stuff, and I actually said at the point, I'm not sure this is going to be a penalty anyway. So I wasn't getting too excited about it until I actually hit the spot. And even then I was saying, make sure you get people behind the ball. Listen, VAR there are going to be subjective ones, but it's clear in England after a number of years. It's gone up from 83 to 98% in terms of the accuracy of decisions.
Yeah, I mean that is the intention, Tam, which we cannot forget, which is the percentage of things getting readdressed and getting them correct is why we are implementing VAR in the first place. We want to increase the percentage. You're not going to eliminate it because there's still an element of human error, but I think it's maybe not at the highest percentage we want right now, and this human error is causing a lot of consternation.
Yeah, I think that's going to get better as we go on. I think in maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, you're going to be getting that percentage that Malky spoke about there. It's going to be very, very high, and you're going to get the big decisions right. There was a couple at the weekend which VAR worked perfectly for. I think the Rangers penalty, for example, it was a clear penalty kick. I think he booked Kent for diving, so something like that I think is perfect for VAR, and that's why we brought it in. But it's going to take time, maybe a year, to get us up to where England is at the minute, and they had teething problems at the start as well. They got a lot of decisions wrong, a lot of criticism. So I think we've just got to go, grin and bear it just now, and hopefully in a year's time we're up there in terms of percentage of decisions.
Yeah, a year's time is after January the 2nd.
Yeah, next season.
Yeah, okay then, that's fine. I'm just saying, as you're saying, let's have calm. Rangers against Celtic at Ibrox Alley is going to be mental. I cannot, and I hope we're not talking about referees on January 3rd, but I have my suspicions.
We've been for the last 40 years.
Can you imagine
to see how they implement it in the World Cup? I'll be interested to see how they handle the handball in the World Cup, if it's any different for what's happening with us.
Yeah, it will be. I think it's going to be interesting to see that, and the speed of decisions as well, the better quality of referees that are on show. I'm sure there are some that will maybe not reach the standard that FIFA had hoped for, even although they're there as top flight referees. I mean, that's just the human nature, but certainly where we are at the moment, some of the referees leave a lot to be desired. We are not at the stage where we had a number of good referees. I mean, Hugh Dallas for me in his prime was a top referee. There's a number we could all rhyme off that really were officiating at the top level. And we don't have that now. We just don't have those people regarded by FIFA as top drawer.
No, I think you can see it. I think you see it in decisions. I think Tam touched on it, but I think what VAR has shown is just how many decisions have been wrong, or have been miscalled. I hope the technology has a better and more positive impact as we go on, and you would like to think that it doesn't have such a central role in outcomes and decisions, but I have to say some of the decisions that you've seen from the very first weekend of implementation have left you scratching your head.
Okay, if we've been talking about, is it time for Gio to go? I had a wee look at how many games your man has been in charge. It's 20. He's had 1 win in the last 5 games. It's not looking good for Lee Johnson. And I think I'm looking at it and wondering, is he under pressure? Is it time for a change? Or does he deserve maybe longer than the previous incumbent?
I think he deserves more time. I think the finger of blame at the moment at Hibs is getting firmly pointed at the owner and his son in terms of recruitment. I think if you sack another manager, if you keep sacking managers, it's maybe not the managers that's the problem. You've got to look higher than that, and I think the Hibs supporters now are closely scrutinising the people in charge at the club. So he is under pressure. I think when you're at a club like Hibs, you lose 6 out of 7, then you're going to be under pressure. We already spoke about this, the first 4 games back after the break, Celtic, Rangers, Hearts and Livingston, culminating in Hearts at Tynecastle, and I think January the 2nd. So that the result on Saturday might have, it could have bought him a little bit more time, a little bit more credit. They lost the game again. Now sitting in 8th place, although the league is pretty tight. The Hibs supporters are not going to put up with that. But I think what's in his favour is Ron Gordon admitting that he sacked Jack Ross too early. He sacked Sean Maloney after 20 games. I don't think he's going to do the same, but if you lose all 4 of those games, you take a heavy defeat at Tynecastle, you're talking 9 out of 10 you've lost. Managers would do well anywhere now in this current climate to survive that, so he needs to get a result. He needs to get Kevin Nisbet back in the team. I think that he's going to be crucial. I know he spoke about it the other day, saying that he wishes he'd have maybe thrown him into a couple of games, but I think Kevin will be champing at the bit to get back into that team, and they've missed him badly. Aidan McGeady hopefully back after the break as well. So there's 2 players that can come right into the team and make a difference, and Hibs need people to make a difference because they're so toothless at the moment in the forward areas. It's
funny you saying that, and I'll get the thoughts of Alison and Ruffy in a minute, but I'm just looking at the 4 games that you're talking about. It's Rangers away, it's Livingston at home, it's Celtic at home, and then it's away to Hearts. Realistically, you know what's coming, don't you? How many 12? How many points do you think they're going to get out of that?
I don't know. I mean, the way 3 maybe Livingston at home. I mean, they go to Ibrox. I think Rangers might have a change of manager, but then who knows? But Celtic at home is a difficult game, and then Hearts away, not got a good record. So it's a real tough run of fixtures for him, and he needs his strongest players in there. So
what keeps him in a job out of 12 points?
A couple of wins. I think beating Hearts
6 points minimum.
I think the old firm. Listen, they're difficult. They're difficult games, but I think you've got to beat Livingston at home, and then you've got to go to Hearts and avoid defeat. So I think 4, maybe 6 points out of that would keep him in a job.
What about you, Ruffy?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
4 points.
I think 4 points. I think the Hearts is the big one, obviously.
Yeah.
I think going there and getting heavily beat, would be a turning point for a lot of people, as it has done before. But you just have to wait and see how he goes. He'll be telling everybody behind the scenes, look at the chances we're creating, look at what we're doing, the boys are playing reasonably well, we're not getting a win, that he'll be telling, and it just depends whether they take it in or not.
Yeah, if he wins against Livingston but loses all the others,
depends a bit how far back that puts him in the table, because if that is the case, he's going to be bottom.
These 2, by the way.
He's going to be bottom 6. If that is, in the deep.
The game at Tynecastle is crucial. That is the one that you can't afford to lose.
Yeah, I can't see them winning it, even at this point.
And it's remember about the 20th anniversary of the 4 each game. That game we were 4-2 up with 3 minutes to go. So I've not got fond memories of that January the 2nd fixture at Tynecastle.
Ali?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think so much will hinge on Tynecastle, but I think Hibs have got a look about them when they lose the first goal that they toil to come back. I thought they deserved at least a point on Saturday. I think they had a marginal offside call too. I think it might have gone on another day. They might have got it without VAR. I think he was marginally offside. But I thought they'd done enough in the last half an hour. They created a lot of chances. They just lack some composure in that final third. You can see how badly they miss Nesbitt, how much they miss Martin Boyle when he's not there and he's not playing. But yeah, I think the only thing that's helped just now is the fact that so many teams round about them have lacked consistency. So when you look at it and you say 8,
only three points behind or something.
There's 5, I think it is, off off Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And equally 5 off Motherwell and Ross County going the other way. So I think it's a very critical juncture. I think if they had to go to Ibrox, for example, and take a point and then beat Livingston, all of a sudden it could look very different. But I think so much will hinge on the next 4 games, and culminating with that game at Tynecastle.
And that's everything the Hibs manager will be telling to the owners. Everything that Alison said there, he'll be hitting them with that, and then it just depends whether they believe everything he tells them.
Yeah, it's about a board holding their nerve. What do you think on that? Give us your view on the Hibs situation. Rangers, will Giovanni Van Bronckhorst be the manager leading them into that game against Celtic on January the 2nd, or will there be someone else in? And if so, who would you like to see in there as the Rangers manager if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is sacked? Celtic headed out to Australia today to play in the tournament. Quite a few other clubs have got a wee break where they will head off to sunnier climes. I noticed when we interviewed Stephen Robinson at the end of the match, he said, all the best lads, I'm away to Spain. so there's a few managers looking forward to a wee rest as well from this World Cup that starts. And incidentally, hit the subscribe button, because as far as the World Cup is concerned, we'll be bringing you not only some great one-to-ones, but we'll be covering all the games in our show and continually giving you your football fix. So hopefully you'll stay with us for that and give us your point of view, as well as other breaking sports stories and covering the lower leagues in Scotland as well over the weekend. Big game for Ruffy we'll talk about against Arbroath, which if you don't get a chance to follow that game, it'll be all Partick Thistle until Arbroath score the winner, and then we should have won the game. I was just giving you the after-match press conference there. We've got some Partick Thistle news coming up as well shortly, which it's a bad day when the director goes, wow,
I know,
what is it?
I know exactly what you're talking
okay
about.
Then. St Johnstone won, Motherwell won, unbeaten in, they're 5th in the league, they're unbeaten in 5 games. Great stuff from Callum Davison. I predicted them to get relegated, and I've offered my full apology.
It might just give a few boardrooms something to think about, holding your nerve and saying, it's not working, but we appointed this guy, we have to trust our own judgment that we got it right and stick by them. I think I don't think many people would have seen him turning it around after last season, and even the start that they had to the opening weeks of this campaign. So they've showed a resilience and starting to piece together a wee bit of form. Yeah,
wee bit of fortune for Motherwell, and Spittle's free kick took a wicked deflection, but still sometimes you need that wee bit of luck, and I think Stephen Hamill's been denied it of late. Yeah, I think Motherwell probably drew that, a little bit of luck. They've not had much recently. I think that was a big point for them. I think if Stephen goes up there and gets another defeat, then again he comes under a little bit of pressure, so they got up there to get a point. They can get away pretty happy where they're sitting. St Johnstone, looks strong at the minute. Nicky Clark up there, I think it's been a great signing. Jamie Murphy has been a really good signing as well. So he's recruited well. He's brought a little bit of a spark to that final third, which we were lacking. And they look back to where they were under Callum Davison. The season won the 2 trophies. Yeah, I'm looking at Hearts against Livingston, Ruffy, and I've got to say, Livingston's goal was an absolute joy to watch from young Kelly, but the build-up play with Andrew Shinnie's control on his chest was fantastic. Yeah, well, some people might have said it was his arm, but VAR never looked at that either. If you get another chance to see it, when it came over, I thought it hit a part of his arm. You did? Yeah, I thought it did. I thought he controlled it with his arm. Yeah, what about that? You know what, I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I didn't. Fair play to Ruffy for doing research. Ruffy's handball mad at the moment. Well, I just loves the handball, so we'll have a look. I'll have a look at it. I had a look at it. I didn't think it was a hand, did you? I thought it was beautiful control on his chest. What about the skill for the big boy Newbley? Is he not a joy to watch? Good player. Yeah. Unbelievable ability for a guy that size who can do the tricks that he does with the ball, and he's a mainstay in that team. Just a shame he never scored the penalty. Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing. That's another one. Craig Gordon, off his line, doesn't get pulled up. It's not consistent. I don't get Ruffy in the VAR. When they dive, goalkeepers always come off the line. Yeah. No goalkeeper stands on that line until the ball's kicked. Every goalkeeper moves. Yeah. But they're pulling up some, they're letting away others. So it's the consistency that really is your problem with it all. Then change the rule. Let the goalkeepers do whatever they want. It's a free hit. It's a free shot. Yeah.
Let him dive left, let him dive right, let him go early.
Can I just say something to you, Ruffy? You know, knowing your lot as I do, you know what happens? When they say, right, we've changed the rule, you can now do what you want. See when the referee blows the whistle, the goalkeeper runs out to the 6-yard area and starts reducing the size of the goal, palming it round the corner.
Sure, I mean, we used to do it before. No, I just think it's a silly wee rule.
Yeah.
I actually thought a more sensible way to do it, to implement that, would be to say you've got to stand just behind your line.
But that's what they've been doing. That's what the goal.
And then
that's what if you watch them, that's what the ones are doing. So you're coming forward, because you do come forward.
Yeah.
To give yourself spring to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you the good news for Hearts is that for some people who obviously are away in World Cup duty, Craig Halkett and Stephen Kingsley are back still training, because they should be back for after the World Cup, which is great news for Robbie Neilson.
Yeah, I think you'll see a different Hearts post World Cup after the break. I think one, they're out of the Conference League, so they don't have the same dual demands of fighting on two fronts, but also I think there's quite a few players to come back from injury. I also think they've got a bit of money in the bank now. I'd be surprised if they didn't invest in that squad in January. Yeah,
and Gary McDowell's having none of it. Gordon's foot was behind the line when the penalty was taken.
His back foot was behind the line, but his front foot wasn't it?
Okay then, there you are, Gary. You've got one foot. You've got one foot. He's got the other. By the way, can I just say before we finish all this, David Martindale. We keep talking about him, but this is. I mean, it's not kick launch football. It's good football. Andrew Shinnie has always been a good quality player on the deck. I thought his skill was great. The finish was superb. You know, you've got to give the manager credit. I just wonder. I always think sometimes when you're hot, you're hoping somebody gives you the chance to go to a bigger club. No disrespect to the Livingston fans.
Yeah, listen, I think that there's a few Hibs supporters talking about David Martindale. You know, and. That's the kind of calibre that he's getting linked with now. They should have won the game. You know, if the penalty goes in 2-0 against 10 men, they win the game. That was a huge turning point. It gave Hearts a wee sniff, and to be fair, and they took it. They came back strongly towards the end with 10. But I think with David Martindale, he controls everything at Livingston. You know, I think that would be the only stumbling block. I think to go to another club, he's got full control there. You know, players coming in, players coming out, different things. You know, he kind of runs the club. So I think he's at his club, but. You know, if a Hibs or a Dundee United possibly or something like that maybe sacks their manager, then I think you'd be casting eyes towards David Martindale. Are we
elevating him too much above his station? Because Alan Woods says, what Livy games has Peter been watching? I've watched more than a few, and they do play good football. I mean, at times if you're watching them, and Alan's clearly a Celtic fan, either that or he's got somebody to hold it up in his feet, the Celtic top. But, you know, Livingston are not going to come out and try and go toe to toe playing football against Celtic. That's just madness, as many a club has found out at the moment.
I think they punch above their weight, and I think ultimately that's what you're judged on as a manager. I think they play to their strengths. I think players have got better under him. I think he's eked something out of the players that you've got, which I always think is a sign of a good coach.
Yeah.
When you can draw something out of the players that you've got, you can get them to hit their potential, and then you can form a cohesion within your team and get the right balance of that. I think you'd have to say, for the resources he has and where Livingston are, they punch significantly above their weight.
I think they're underrated as a team. I think that, you know, people think
certain players have got. If you look at the individual players they've got, they're good players.
Yeah.
You know, they're not just run of the mill. Yeah. No guys who've been brought in to make a team. A lot of them are very individually very, very good players.
You would say that Livingston are the lowest budget in the league?
Easily.
I think they're the lowest budget in the league. And I don't think they pay anywhere near as much as other clubs.
And I look at Jason Holt as well. Good footballer, middle of the park. Shinnie again. Newbley's a big fan. Ruffy, you're a big fan of him.
I mentioned Devlin as
well. The big boy. Well, Nicky Devlin could easily play at a higher level again. And Montano has scored goals this season, so we've gone right through that side, and I think they deserve the credit, and certainly could have had all 3 points in that game. Aberdeen 1, Dundee United 0. Do we talk about Dundee United in their predicament at the moment with their budget? I mean, if you think about what David Martindale's got, Alison, and what's happening there with an inexperienced Liam Fox, United are bottom of the table and in big trouble.
Absolutely, and he must be tearing his hair out, because you go and thump Kilmarnock 4-0 and then come off the table, albeit only in goal difference, and then go up to Pittodrie and get nothing. I had some sympathy for them because I think they merited something from that game. I thought Aberdeen really rode their luck, particularly in the second half. But yeah, I think at this stage of the season, to be where they are and the return overall has just not been good enough. It's when you talk about budgets, big players in there this season. You've got Stephen Fletcher.
A lot of money.
Harks that signed a new deal at the end of last season. I think there's a lot of money in that team. They're underperforming for what they've got, and it must be a serious concern now. And again, I don't think you can afford to go and change it, having done so swiftly. I don't think they can afford to go and make a change now. I think you've got to stick by it and ride it out. But there'll be a few anxious people around Tannadice just now giving them money that rides on staying in the league and not going down.
Yeah, I'd like to see Miofsky stay, despite, see when anybody scores 6 or 7 goals in our division, they'll get them linked with everybody in their granny. Rafi, I'd like to see him stay at Pittodrie.
Yeah, I think the Aberdeen supporters have been looking for a striker, somebody that they could bank on at least scoring regularly or scoring a winning goal or regularly scoring penalties or whatever. They've not had that for a long time. We've always sat here saying, they're all over the place on the park, but at least they've got a striker now that's winning games for them.
Absolutely. Here's how the Premiership table looks after this weekend's games. What's your thoughts on it? Dundee United at the bottom, but Kilmarnock and of course Ross County, and not too far ahead of them, Motherwell, all still within striking distance. Hibs have got a little bit of a cushion in mid-table with St Mirren, and in fact you can just throw a blanket over everybody up until you get to Rangers and Celtic. 9 points the difference between Celtic and Rangers now. Is the title over in your eyes? Give us your thoughts on it. Can anybody catch Celtic now? Is it all about just that coronation all the way through with the odd bit of icing on the cake in the Glasgow derbies? You've got to give us your thoughts on that. Everybody looks forward to an Old Firm game, so the Rangers fans will be wondering, can they somehow turn it around in time for January the 2nd? Will we be talking about VAR in that derby match as well? Give us your thoughts. And as ever at the weekend, dramatic changes, Ruffy, in the predictor, as you can see now, because quite simply, Ruffy on 134, I'm on 132, all the way back down now to Tam on 121. Alison's on 118, but Alison, suddenly, I don't know if you can just sense it right now, Alison, that's just a bead of sweat on your head, because Tam Cowan's on 115 and Hugh McDonald, now bear in mind, Alison, Hugh McDonald has had about 17 draws for Rangers.
That's how he's picking up points here after Boyle.
And he's now within striking distance of you. You've got to be worried, surely.
No.
I
just need a winter break.
I'll tell you what you need. You'll need a psychiatrist if suddenly you're at that bottom end, because if Tam Cowan taking us all out for a meal was up at this level, I'm worried about you at this level, because I think the meal will be ranked rotten.
Me and Ali have got a joint bank account and we're just sticking 50 quid a month away just in case.
Oh, showing off 50 quid a month, Brilliant. Ali, if you were to hit the bottom, I think there would be serious worries over the standard. Would you leave?
It'd be cheaper to leave.
Yeah, just join Gabs at Clyde. Brilliant. Anyway, the predictor, it's getting, it's only a matter of time. You and I just started to get.
Well, nobody's had a big one. Big points.
There is a potential.
Nobody said 17.
Do you know why nobody's had a 21 this season, Ruffy? Do you know why?
He's been so inconsistent. No, but it's so difficult.
It's so tough to call the games. I think it's tough, and I cannot wait. We've got a fantastic game that hopefully, by the time we get by tonight, I'll tell you tomorrow about how you can get involved in our World Cup game on Fandex, which is going to be absolutely fantastic to get involved in. But at the start of the season, Ruffy, we will have predictor for everybody to get involved in, and you'll see the fans will get the chance to play it. You'll see how difficult it is to actually try, especially with the teams if they're as erratic as they are at the moment, Tom.
Yeah, it's difficult, as I said. That's why there's 5 points, I think, between 6 or 7 clubs, and so nobody's running away with it. I think you can safely predict Celtic every week you win, but Rangers have dropped a lot of points. Hibs, Aberdeen away from home, so listen, it's difficult. But the only thing that we're all caring about is just try to stay away from that bottom spot.
case the meal. I'm really worried about the standard of meal from yourself, Ali. I think, you know what I think could happen?
Cook for you.
I was going to say, actually, we don't know about yourself. I'd rather Fred cooked your man, so we can have a right good night. But nevertheless, that's how it's going in the predictor.
Christmas still going ahead in the house, just in case.
Yeah.
The kids getting worried.
Oranges and apples in the stockings.
Yeah, exactly.
Chocolate.
Ali, what do you make of 3 Scotland stars have pulled out of this Turkey friendly? It was always going to happen. Shea Adams, who scored a good goal at the weekend, Kenny McLean and Nathan Patterson.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable when you get to friendly games. I think you always have a few call-offs. I think it's very different if you've got a tournament that you're vying for. If there had been a space to go to Qatar, I'm sure they might have muddled on through.
Yeah.
But I think you can understand that. I think if you're carrying any kind of knock, you don't want to aggravate it. You maybe want to take precautions, and clubs, I think, probably put on a bit of pressure. Just saying, we pay your wages. If you're carrying any kind of knock, then we want you to be fighting for it.
Yeah, the other aspect of this, Ruffy, I think the Tartan Army had 1,250 tickets, but only 400 Scotland fans have taken up the option, because sometimes when there's a chance to get into battle, there's a time to be a coward and say, I'm not going to Turkey. And I would be one of them. 30,000 Turkish fans have snapped up their tickets. Yeah. The phrase "welcome to hell" always actually enters my head. I watched the documentary and they were talking about Manchester United going there when Cantona was playing, and boy, I've been there commentating. It's at times can be really intimidating.
I know. I think the Graham Souness one just epitomised it for me. The flag. How he got out of that stadium alive, I don't know. But they are fanatical, there's no doubt about it. And I suppose they must pick up a lot of fines with their flares, because the whole ground just covered in them. Must get fined every FIFA game or UEFA game or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. The Fenerbahce Ultras all get together and pay the fee, and so does the Galatasaray Ultras. But nevertheless, it is an intimidating place. If Scotland get something out of that one, all well and good. We'd like to see it. Thanks to so many of you for your points and, of course, your support on our feed. We always like to praise so many of you who make some good points. There's a bit of banter on the feed from time to time, and every now and then we try and make sure that of all the people who are putting across points, we make sure we block any profanities and try and keep it as decent as possible. So thank you to so many of you near and far who watch the programme on your smart television. All you have to do is go on to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. You'll get, of course, uncensored football news and banter, and it's absolutely free. So thank you to so many of you for showing your support there. Our website, and over and above that, our social media channels, including the app, which so many people are downloading because you can watch the programme live on it as well. Just before we go, I thought it would be pertinent to talk about a couple other little things that caught my eye. One of them was, of course, Ronaldo, who's been really having a go. This one really has opened up a hornet's nest. Ronaldo has been speaking to Piers Morgan, and he's been speaking to him for 90 minutes, which is no mean feat in itself, to be honest with you. 8 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday on Talk TV. You can get it on Sky at 526. Virgin Media, it's there, Freeview, and also Freesat and Sky Glass, where you can get it on Channel 508. It's live on demand on Talk TV's app, and of course their services offer you the chance to see the interview in full, where Ronaldo, just basically talking to Piers Morgan, has mentioned that he thinks the club have betrayed him.
Around the club.
At the senior executive level?
Yes, that I felt betrayed.
And you think they're trying to get rid of you?
Honestly, I shouldn't say that, I don't know, but listen, I don't care, people should listen the truth. Yes, I feel betrayed, and I felt that some people that don't want me here, not only this year, but last year too.
Well, it's an interesting debate, this one, because if you're a Ronaldo fan, do you take his side? The club is always bigger than the player. Alison, first of all, what do you make of his decision to come out and have a go at the club? It's the beginning of the end.
I think it just reeks of self-interest. I can't imagine having to go back in and face your teammates after you give an interview like that. I think it becomes all about him. I think one of the poor decisions that he talks about from the club was a decision to take him to Man United to go back for a second time. I didn't think it was the right move.
That wasn't his fault though, Ali. Sir Alex Ferguson stepped in and swayed it because there was a real chance he was going to Man City.
But when you talk about, he alludes to the poor decisions that are made at boardroom level. I would argue that his going back was one of them. But I think it's a poor decision to do. I don't think it reflects well on him at all. I think as a teammate, first and foremost, which is what you are as a footballer, he's paid handsomely there. He's still being paid handsomely. I think it comes across as incredibly selfish.
And of course he goes on to say that since, of course, the departure of Sir Alex Ferguson, United just haven't moved on.
Sir Alex Ferguson left, I saw not evolution in the club. The progress was zero. For example, we have an interesting point that how the club as Manchester United, after suck Ole, they bring sport directive Ralph Rangnick, which is something that nobody understands. This guy is not even a coach. A bigger club like Manchester United bring sport directive. Surprised not only me, but all the world.
Well, there has been at times some progress when you consider they've won trophies. I mean, they won trophies under Mourinho, but Mourinho was bumped because he just wasn't viewed as a Manchester United manager, and they were craving the title, but it hasn't been delivered.
No, I think you maybe agree with me a little bit on that one. I don't think the progress has been, at Manchester United, but he played in an era where they were dominating, and they won the Champions League. So I think they're miles away from that this now. But I think this current manager they've got, I think they've got to stick with him. He's shown signs that he can get it right if he's given the time. But the first thing he's got to do is get rid of him. Is get rid of Ronaldo. I think his ego's out of control, and I think that for the sake of the whole club and the whole team, he needs to get him out the door, because he's just going to cause problems in there. It's a bad apple in the dressing room, in my opinion. Yeah.
Are there any points there that you think where you could take Ronaldo's side? I offer you, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager, had it not been for the 24 to 28 goals that Ronaldo scored, Ruffy, Manchester United would have been in serious trouble in that first season. He did what he was paid to do, which was come back to the club and score goals at a time when they would have been right down in the trouble in the bottom end.
Yeah, I don't think you could argue with any of the facts that you've just said there. I'd be more interested in him opening up about the betrayal. I'd love to know where he thinks he was betrayed, and then we could all see what it was, what the case was, and then we could all make our mind up. But it doesn't matter what player you are, Some managers come in and they just want their own men in. They might see something in him that they don't want. They want somebody else, a different kind of player or whatever. And that's the way football is. You have to move on. But it doesn't seem to be, I haven't seen the whole interview obviously, but it doesn't seem to be coming out of it, and walking off the park, early games, things like that. Just people assess things and go, look, he's just too big-headed.
Yeah,
that's the assumption you come to.
I think once his career is over, I think people may well soften
his football. He can't complain.
I was just about to say, I think in the all-time greats in world football, he's in the top 5, and I would argue, he might have a legitimate claim based on statistics of being in the top 3 because of what he's done. I think people will readdress when he hangs up his boots. But as far as this latest outburst is concerned, Ali, I look at Manchester United and I can put a line in the sand and say when Ed Woodward became the chief executive, it was the worst decision that Manchester United ever made, because on the instruction of the Glazers and Ed Woodward, who was clueless about football transfers, Manchester United just went down a road. It was like steering a car without a steering wheel.
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument about that. I think that's the one point he makes, that from when Sir Alex Ferguson left, that the progress has been stilted. I think it's inarguable. I think you could question lots of decisions that have been made, and I think that's a fair point. But I think I would agree with you on his performances overall, and you look at the bare stats, but I think there's a culture around him that I think it just comes across as very arrogant at times with some of the decision-making processes, like doing an interview mid-season at a point like this. I think there's an argument to say you keep it in-house until a certain point.
Yeah, okay. 2 quick points before we finish, Ruffy. The Black Cats, the transfer of the shareholding to the Partick Thistle Trust has been approved by the SFA. And if you can, I don't want Alison right now to slap you across the face to get your condescending look off. But you happy with the decision from the SFA?
Yeah, finally. The SFA have come to a decision and they've checked their due diligence and they've handed it over to the Partick Thistle Trust, which is a set of supporters. As we know, they'll be releasing the way they want to take the club ahead with the supporters.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting times ahead.
You're happy that the club...
I'm happy. Well,
do you think the ethos of it was...
Well, Colin Weir's main objective was the shares stay in the club.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. We don't want any outsiders in the club. And that's what he's done. A fantastic gesture to give that amount of shares over.
And the long term now, you think Partick Thistle are in safe hands?
Well, they are in safe hands. There's no debt. There's nothing hiding around the corner that's going to come back and bite anybody. So I hope it unites the club even more. I'm sure it will, because we are a family club.
Could you survive a relegation financially this season?
Financially?
Yep.
Yeah, well, we don't have any debt, so we just have to deal with it.
Drop down division, you'll be okay.
As we did the last time when they wrongly put us down the division.
What happened there? What was that?
Andy only gave us 150,000 and gave everybody else $500,000.
Could you, as well as slapping him, could you take something off that chip off his shoulder?
Oh, he's still raging over it.
Last point, we've got to go. Lewis Ferguson strike for Bologna, 3-0 win.
Brilliant
Strike.
Flying, doing really well over there. Amazed that Rangers never tried to sign him, but I think he's made the right decision going to Serie A, and I think he'll go and get a bigger move from Bologna to possibly a bigger Italian club or English Premiership. I think he's a cracking player.
Absolutely, well done. Good luck to Lewis. Thank you very much to everyone for their comments on our feed. Hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and you'll get uncensored football news and banter as well, and it's absolutely free. Thank you for joining us today. From Ruffy, from Alison, from Tam McManus and myself, Peter Martin. We'll see you tomorrow at 4.